Welcome back to another episode of Ranching Reboot, your go-to podcast for fresh perspectives on regenerative agriculture, sustainable food systems, and the people who are shaking things up. In today's episodes, we're taking you on an eye-opening journey into the world of mobile slaughterhouses. Our special guest, Tiffany Baxter, has turned the meat processing industry on its head with her innovative custom-built mobile slaughter trailer. Discover the ins and outs of Tiffany's operations as we delve into the various aging methods for beef, the challenges of processing deer, and the importance of supporting local butchers. Plus, you'll learn about the need for more skilled professionals in the industry and how you can get started in the rewarding world of butchery. So sit back, relax, and get ready to reboot your thinking about meat processing as we embark on this groundbreaking exploration with Tiffany Baxter. This episode is brought to you by C90 Ocean Minerals, the first step in regenerative agriculture. C90 offers a complete spectrum of natural minerals and trace elements that feed soil biology, enzymes, and fungi to help regenerate your soil matrix and improve soil fertility. Herd and pasture health starts with soil health, and C90 restores the optimal mineral balance needed for healthy, productive soil. Naturally unlock locked-up fertilizer nutrients, expand root networks, and reduce drought risk, and invest equally in this season and the ones to come. Give us a call today, and our experts will help develop a complimentary custom program that fits your operation. Call 717-580-1458 or visit www.sea-90.com. Available nationwide and around the world.
Yo, what's good, my homies? It's your boy Red Hills, and I'm here to tell you about these Bobolink beef snacks. Let me tell you, they straight fire, you dig? I'm talking about real high-quality beef, seasoned to perfection and slow-cooked to give you that melt-in-your-mouth taste. And let's not forget about the packaging. It's tight, it's fresh, and it's perfect for on-the-go snacking. Now, I know what y'all might be thinking. Red, ain't no beef snack going to be good enough for me, but trust me, these Bobolink beef snacks are straight-up game changers. I'm talking about that real beef flavor, packed with protein and made with all-natural ingredients. So if you want to elevate your snack game, snack like a boss, then you got to try these Bobolink beef snacks. I'm telling you, they're the real deal. And don't take my word for it. Try them out yourself, and you'll see why I'm hooked. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Peace out and stay snacking, my homies. My name's Red Hills Rancher, and I'm the steward of the Red Hills, and if you didn't know, you do now. Bow wow.
Hey, Ranching Reboot fans, are you passionate about regenerative agriculture and want to support our podcast? Join our Patreon community today and get exclusive access to bonus content, merch rewards, and more. Your support will help us continue to bring you fresh stories from new faces in agriculture, as well as the tales of industry veterans who are fighting against what's wrong with our food system. Plus, you'll be joining a community of like-minded fans who love ranching, farming, and regenerative agriculture just as much as you do. Also, be sure to join our Discord server, where you can connect with other fans, discuss current events, and past podcast episodes. Our Discord community is the perfect place to share your thoughts and ideas, get feedback on your ranching projects, and learn from other experts in the field. Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity to connect with fellow ranchers and support our podcast at the same time. Join our Patreon community and Discord server today, and let's reboot your thinking about farming, ranching, food systems, and the people that operate them. Hey, you want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money. All in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take your conversations with fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. Well, Tiffany Baxter, otherwise known as Backyard Butchery, welcome to Ranching Reboot. It's great to see you, and I like those pink glasses. So, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Could use it be a little bit warmer, a little bit more moisture, but I'm kind of sick of talking about how dry it is, so I'm just not going to mention that today.
I understand.
So, Tiffany, I started watching your TikToks, and you have a mobile slaughter trailer. Is that right?
That is correct. I can kill, cut, and wrap beef, pork, lamb, and goat on the trailer.
beef, pork, and lamb,
And goat.
and goat all in it. Okay. So, I mean, how did you get into this? How does a young lady decide that they want to go around to farms and cut meat?
Um, I feel like that's everybody's question. I think it really came out of necessity in the beginning, a little bit of spite, to be completely honest, but really I have a passion for raising and growing my own food, and the end goal, of course, is just to share that with other people and give them the opportunity, um, to maybe raise their own food. People that didn't think they could, maybe give those people an opportunity to try to start raising their own food. I also teach classes on how to butcher as well. So we're just trying to get kind of back to the basics, if you will. But most of my customers are really just happy to know that they get their meat back and get all of their meat back. It's a fairly transparent process since we don't leave the property with your animal ever.
Right. You know what? My friend Mike Calicrate, do you know Mike?
I don't.
Well, just kind of the broad strokes. He's been on the podcast, I think, like 5 times. He was just on a couple weeks ago. And so, anyway, Mike is up in Northwest Kansas, and he had a feedlot, got shut out by the big packers. So he decided he was going to have his own processing facility. And gosh, I can't remember when it was, but I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, he took one of the old IBP carcass trailers and turned that into a mobile slaughter unit, like, a full 53-foot unit. Um,
Awesome.
but he's kind of gotten away from that, and I think it was more due to scale. Um, I'm just curious, like how did you figure out how to build the trailer? Did you buy it, or how did that work?
I actually spent, I mean, I was in restaurants prior to COVID happening. So when COVID hit, it gave me some free time. And this is an idea I had probably 5, 6 years ago. It originally stemmed from doing a mobile poultry slaughter unit, but then kind of grew into the larger animals, obviously. And I had the time to sit and to study other mobile slaughter trailers. There are several of slaughter trailers in the country, just not a lot of butcher trailers doing, the packaging and the cutting. So from there, it's just looking at, okay, what do I need? In a regular butcher shop, we need, vacuum sealers and grinders. So I just sat down and sketched it out. I hired an engineer to give me a good CAD design on that. And then from there, it was just a team effort between myself and a couple of friends of friends, getting everything welded and fitted in there. And it's really honestly been trial by error since. We're just trying things, and if it doesn't work, we're adjusting as we go. And so far, it's working pretty well. I don't have a ton of complaints. I would like to upgrade a bunch of equipment. It's just a matter of, money. Stuff's expensive. Unfortunately.
And it doesn't seem like it's very easy to get anymore either.
No, and then I have to take in consideration that I'm running off of a generator, so electricity, is limited. A lot of that equipment's three-phase, and then also taking into account that we're driving down the road, so stuff is going to be rattling, which has also caused a lot of issues, especially with like my bandsaw and stuff. So I've kind of had to overcome a lot of just small inconveniences and some big ones, of course, but mostly small ones along the way. Just trial and error. There's really, as far as I've seen, there's nothing like this anywhere.
No, there really isn't. How long is this trailer? Just so we like, and I guess describe the trailer for the people out there in podcasting. Like, what size of trailer are we talking about here?
So it's a 36-foot gooseneck trailer attached to, obviously, I've got a dually truck. So nose to tail, I think, is 52 feet is the full rig. Off the side, we've got a winch on both sides of the back end of this enclosed utility or cargo trailer. It's fully aluminum. I've got it insulated with AC and heat. Got a couple units of that. And then from there, it's just a rail that runs down the center. It has a 10,000-pound capacity. So if I ever did haul back to a shop, I can do that. And then, of course, we just got all the basic stuff. We got a cut table, and we've got, a grinder, vacuum sealer, everything like that. And then, I mean, the bandsaw is in there as well. But other than that, it just literally looks like a mobile butcher shop. And on the end, we've got, our cranes to hang off of. And, um, I have a power washer there. We just power wash everything out before we leave and sanitize at home. Pretty wild process.
Very cool. I'm trying to picture, 32-foot trailer and hanging a cow inside one of those. I imagine it's you're pretty much using the whole thing from roof to floor.
So the height of the trailer is only 7 foot, and then it drops obviously for the rail. So I have to quarter it to get it into the trailer. We can't, I wouldn't be able to hang halves. I have to hang quarters.
Okay, so like you pull up and you set up like some panels around the back. Is it then you bring
No.
it?
I have one single piece that slides into that rail and it sticks out the back. And then I quarter I have two different winches. There's actually a really cool picture of me doing it, but I basically transfer using the second winch and pull that up onto the piece that extends out. It slides down the rail, and then I go for the second piece. So I quarter off those rib sections first and then bring the back section in last on a cow.
I guess what I'm asking is, what does your setup look like when you pull into somebody's farm or ranch to
it all tucks in. It all tucks in. It just looks like a truck and trailer. You would not know otherwise until I open it up. It all tucks in like little transformer trailer.
Right. I get that. So you carry everything like kill box, couple panels to, connect to their corral system or whatever, so they can get them.
I don't even bring panels. I don't even bring panels. Most of the time we can either walk the animal up or I can back up to their pen and then we'll just go from there. Worst case scenario, we'll drop and drag.
Okay. So then you use your two winches that are on the back of the trailer. You pull them up and then you quarter them and then swing it over to the center rail and run them into your trailer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just trying to think of what questions to ask to make myself sound smart, because I don't know anything about meat processing.
Well, come to Oklahoma, get you something, and I'll process it for you.
I'm only 20 miles on the wrong side of the state line. I'm only 20 miles up into Kansas.
You got to know somebody 20 miles closer.
Oh, I know plenty of guys in Oklahoma. Don't worry. Most of them listen to this podcast. So you are in Oklahoma.
Yes.
I guess we missed that about 5 minutes ago. So let's talk about inspection. I know I haven't seen you say that you're USDA inspected, and I imagine that getting a USDA inspector to like go on the road with you is probably not going to happen. So are you state inspected?
Custom exempt. So, I mean, someone from the state has come inspected me, but to be state inspected technically would mean kind of the same as USDA, as I would have a state inspector with me. I could go USDA or state inspected if I built a bathroom and an office on my trailer for them. That's essentially what's holding me back. But also, the other reason I don't want to go that far is because I specialize in emergencies. So injured cattle, they have to walk across the kill floor in other butcher shops. I'm the only one that will come to you. And I'm afraid if we went USDA or state inspected, then that would really, I think that would change. I think they would not allow that. Obviously, they're not going to inspect something that's injured. They're going to go ahead and just say no. And I do help a lot of people in that situation. We had one just 2 days ago. And if you're a cattle farmer, if you're a rancher, you have one go down. If you can get something, salvage something out of that, then, I'm happy to oblige. I want to help people as much as I can. That is a crap situation to be in. And if we go inspected, I know that part's going to go away for people. And until there's at least other people doing this available to them, I'm gonna stay where I'm at. And honestly, I think the less government involvement is better for me in the end.
Less government is usually better for everybody.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to stay where I'm at. I know a lot of shops did go USDA this last year because of all the grants that were out for COVID. So there are, I mean, we have tons of those options for other people. If they're wanting to sell piece by piece or out of state lines, then they've got a million other options besides me.
Okay. So just being a custom exempt, are there any creative labels that you can help out with customers so they can maybe sell some of that meat, or is that just under the normal custom exempt rules?
I mean, custom exempt, you can still sell shares. So you can still sell quarters, halves, wholes. And there's actually no legal, number of people on that share. So like if you had a pig, you wanted to sell completely sausage. If you can guesstimate, 100 shares out of that, let's say you're going to get 100 pounds of sausage, you could sell 100 shares of that pig as a live animal. So as long as it's sold prior to the kill and preferably money has been exchanged, the state isn't as strict about that as Texas is or some others. I don't know how Kansas is, but here in Oklahoma, they're a little less picky about that. But technically sold as a live animal is the law. But again, like I said, there's no number of people that are limited on the shares. So that's how you can get creative.
There's probably some other creative dodges around that, like, not even selling and sharing an individual animal, but selling, future beef shares or percentages of herd that you can redeem for beef.
Right. Right. As long as it's sold as a live animal, I think that you'll be fine. You can get away with it. Just really the big things being not being sold across state lines or going to restaurants, grocery stores. I think that's really what they're most concerned about.
I would kind of agree with that. I kind of feel like we can get away with a lot of stuff until we try to get into a grocery store or a restaurant.
Right. Right. Yeah. As long as you know who you're dealing with, you'll be fine.
Or doing stuff like advertising nationally, that'd be pretty dumb.
Right. Yeah. Don't do that.
So you don't you don't have any chill space. So after you process everything and package it, it's warm, and then the customer has to have freezer space to be able to chill that meat down.
Correct. Yeah. Or they could put it in their refrigerator and wet age it from there. A lot of my customers use what's called an ink bird where they can trip their freezers into running a little hotter. So, that happy space to age is from 34 to 40. So there's also a convertible fridge and freezer that'll do that for you, which I highly recommend. But the USDA standard is that you get that animal cooled down in 24 hours. So a lot of people don't know that you actually have a 24-hour window to get that animal cooled down. But I mean, I'm usually out of there in a pretty quick amount of time. I think the other day I did one and it was by myself. I got there about 10. I was out of there by 4. So, it's going in their fridges a lot quicker than you think. And I don't think there's never going to be a day that I miss that 24-hour mark. I mean, one way or another, we're going to get it in there.
Can you talk a little bit about aging and maybe give us some education about the different kinds of aging, wet aging, dry aging, and what the difference is and what that does for the meat?
Yeah, so there's kind of 3 categories because here in Oklahoma, nobody actually dry ages beef. I think there's a big miscommunication. I think a lot of people think that what they're getting from their local butcher shop here, and again, all I can speak for is Oklahoma. I don't know how it is there in Kansas, but I think a lot of people think that they're getting their aged beef as dry aged beef. In fact, most shops here, it's just a walk-in cooler. So I always reference that as hung beef. It's just being hung in regular refrigeration. Technically, dry aged beef is kind of like making cheese or making like a mold. You're really manipulating your humidity and your airflow and things like that. And what it's doing is it's essentially it's just drying up your beef. It's exactly what it sounds like. It gives you a more concentrated kind of beefy flavor. Hung beef is really just allowing that meat to age properly. So, but it's not adding anything to the flavor. It's just allowing those enzymes to break down and tenderize the meat. And that's going to happen in every one of these options because the word aging is really just a nice way of saying rotting. We put it in such, just like anything in this industry, we want to make it sound pretty, even though that's really what's happening. When an animal dies, it goes stiff, and you don't want to put a stiff animal in your freezer. That's the most basic way for me to explain it. You want to go ahead and let those muscles relax back down so that you're not eating a tough animal. Now that the third option is wet aging, and that's what I do most of my customers will do because they get their animal back in vacuum sealed packages. Wet aging does add a bit to the flavor. You don't lose the weight like you would in dry aging. So you retain some more of your weight, which is more important if you're selling your meat by the pound. Of course, you'd need to adjust that for dry aging, but then the wet aging, it goes a little faster because it's already broken down into cuts as well. So I feel like you can get a lot further with wet aging. I personally like all three options. I can't say I like dry aged beef in certain cases. I like wet aged beef more in other cases. Originally when I built my trailer, I thought that I was going to build a dry age facility because nobody else has one. And I thought, well, how cool would that be? But over the last, I guess it's been almost a year since I've been open. Over the last almost a year, I'm noticing most people really don't have the fat coverage. Especially with grass-fed beef, we know you're not going to have the coverage that you're going to need to keep that beef, moist during that process. You're just going to end up with really crappy beef jerky. So I don't think that dry aging is really the best for everyone. Everyone wants dry aged beef, but not everyone's beef would work well in dry aged facilities. So, like I said, there's a couple ways to accomplish it. People are really loving those convertible fridges and freezers because you're able to put it in there for 34 to 40 degrees for about 2 weeks, and then just crank it down into the freeze mode, and you're done. Of course, aging is just like any other animal. The younger animals are more tender. Of course, your steers are going to be more tender, are going to require less aging. But then when you get into like your old bulls, any bull really, which again, they're going to be super lean as well. So you're can't look forward to a lot of fat on them either. But really your older animals and your bulls are going to be the ones that need more of that aging than your younger animals and your females.
And those would work better on a wet age process?
I wouldn't say they work better, but it works well. It works really well. Yeah.
Because that's kind of what I have, all grass fed, quote, pasture finished.
Right.
So tell me some more about so we're doing small ruminants, pigs, and cows. Tell me about like some of the services you offer in your trailer.
Like what exactly? Give me an idea what you mean by that.
Well, I guess you could, you can break down a cow into pretty much any retail cut.
Right.
Not just subprimals. You can do grind. Are you doing sausage and cutting bacon?
Sausage, yes. So the one thing, well, really two things, I guess. Curing is the thing that I'm working on right now. We obviously, since I'm in and out in the same day, curing bacon and hams is the one thing I'm really not able to do. So I'm actually working with a butcher in Texas who is making his own line of sausages, and he is working on some what we're going to call like a ready cure. And I don't know if this is something I'm going to sell to the customer separately that they can just apply and with directions, kind of follow those instructions for the curing of the bacon or the ham, or if this is something I'm going to apply to it before we vacuum seal it. I don't know about that yet, but that's what we're working on right now, because I know a lot of my pork customers are intimidated by that process. And they'll just tell me, just make it into sausage instead. We do that. I do offer 5 different flavors of sausage. I do tenderize stuff. There's just, as far as beef goes, there's really nothing I can't offer. Lamb and goat, same. It's just really on the pork, on that curing of bacons and hams that I'm not able to do a lot. And obviously I don't do, sausage links or anything like that either. A lot of the added value products are what we're losing by being mobile same day. Um, I'm just kind of working on, I think now that we're a little further into it, now I can start focusing on some of those little finer details. I've just been for the last year just trying to get efficient, really just trying to get all the equipment to work the way it's supposed to work. And now we can work on, okay, now let's polish things up and make prettier packages for people.
I imagine you almost need another 20 or 30-foot trailer for all the value add stuff.
Almost. I think if I ever did like deer, that's essentially what that would be, for making jerky and making sausages. Um, that might be my next step. We'll see. I'll let you know.
If you do sheep and goats, how come you don't do deer? Is just seasonality and not interested in it?
Um, so I wouldn't go mobile for deer. I would probably, there's no legal no, there's zero legal oversight on wild game. So you can literally do whatever you want. That's the freedom with wild game. My issue with wild game, if I'm going to be really, if we're going to get into it, it's deer hunters. Deer hunters are my problem with wild game. They don't like venison, but then they use way too big of a caliber and they blow out the entire shoulder, and then they're upset they don't get their meat back. But they don't really like venison because it ran 100 yards all stressed out from a lung shot, and then it never got bled or gutted right away. It got thrown in the back of a pickup for 30 miles, 40 miles before then they maybe gutted it properly, probably didn't bleed it at that point. Now you've got clogged up blood vessels all throughout the meat. And,
Sounds
and
like
yeah,
deer hunters.
right. Yeah. And then, most of the shops that are processing deer, because there's no legal oversight, they're just getting stacked in coolers with the hides on, which is where all the bacteria is. Yeah, I like to know when something's killed. Um, that helps me in the butcher process. I like to know how it was killed. So if I get into deer processing, it's going to be a mental thing for me. I'm gonna have to get over all the BS. But if I did, I would just be stationary, just because of all those added value products. They're going to take more than a day for one. It's going to take more than a day, but also it would be a quantity game. At that point, we would need to bring in a ton of deer, which really isn't an issue in Oklahoma. We have, the few deer places that are available here are stacked through the entire season, and they just run nonstop. And I already do that, so I don't need to bring in more work for myself. But whenever I get bored with what I'm doing, I probably will, I'll be honest.
So, how much trouble did you have getting busy in the first 6 months?
No problem.
Really?
Not an issue. No. I actually had a waiting list for almost a year before I got open.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. COVID kind of changed the processing game a bit. I know the local shops here at one point were all booked like 2 years in advance. And then there was one of our shops got bought out by a single rancher in Texas just because he needed somewhere to take all his cattle. And then you saw the grants get taken out, and a lot of new shops opened up, a lot of old shops shut down. It's been really interesting to watch. But especially in like the hog game, there's not a lot of hog butchers out here. There's not a lot of people processing those anymore. And longhorns, a lot of our local processors quit doing longhorns just because of the trouble they make in the pens prior. But
Yeah, my processor said don't bring us the big horn ones because we're going to charge you a bunch extra. As if they
right.
don't go much past the ears, we're okay.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to fit into a squeeze chute that great.
I've got a few that I don't even send down the alley to even look at a chute because my alley's too narrow and it's too tall. And you can't send a cow with 6-foot wide horns down a 3-foot alley. Like, she's
No.
going to beat them and bang them the whole way down. She's going to get stressed, get mad, and hurt herself. And there's just no point in that.
No, I agree. I agree completely. But being mobile, I'm able to cover the whole state as well. So there's certain parts of the state where there's really nobody close by. And those people, They love it when I show up. They'll book a whole week of appointments, and I'll just drop the trailer and come back the next day, and we'll do all set, we'll do a whole week of workout in Comanche, Oklahoma, or I've been a mile from the Texas border at Chile, Oklahoma. I need to do a map and just pin all the places I've been, because I think I've everywhere but really the Panhandle I've been butchering.
I was going to kind of ask, do you actually get out all the way in the Panhandle? I mean, I'm not from Oklahoma, but it seems like the Panhandle, the rest of Oklahoma doesn't necessarily consider the Panhandle part of the state.
It's like the armpit of Oklahoma. Yeah.
It,
Yeah, it should have been Texas, but it wasn't, there's some slave history there. But yeah, I haven't had anybody pay me to go out there. I mean, I charge $2 a mile, so people are going to be paying for that mileage, and they may look at that and go, that's not worth her trip, or that's not, something that I'm willing to pay. And $2 a mile is actually pretty cheap, to be honest. Like the wear and tear on my stuff is worth way more than that, but I'm trying to keep affordable so that people will try me out.
I mean, $2 a mile to move a 32 footer and a dually.
36. It's 36. Yeah.
I guess I
I
didn't.
mean, it's aluminum. It's lightweight. I think the whole thing altogether is 19,000 pounds.
You're still getting 8-10 miles a gallon.
Yeah, well, since I deleted my def, which I shouldn't have said that probably publicly, but I get like 12 miles to the gallon now. I'm big time now. It's very cool.
I traded off my emissions equip pickup like 3 years ago, and bought one 3 years older that doesn't have it. So I'm driving around on a good old 5.9 Cummins, so I don't have emissions. Period. Never had to worry about it.
Yeah, this is my first vehicle with it. And it left me stranded 3 hours from home when a sensor went out and says, you don't have def. It was spilling out, but it works just like gas. If you run out of fuel, it'll put you in limp mode. So there I was pulling the trailer in limp mode to a customer's house. So I just got rid of it.
That's probably less than ideal. I mean, it is a big reliability thing. And I have a hard time seeing how all those plastic jugs and cardboard containers are not polluting, because you can't reuse the plastic jug.
No,
Won't get recycled. So
right.
The little bit of emissions is worth that plastic jug in the environment.
Plus the extra fuel you're using.
Yes.
Yeah, when I can personally attest that I've come up like 4 miles per gallon, and of course it's a diesel truck, so that adds up.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion, what's worse, the fluid, the containers, the mileage? I don't know what's worse, but having my truck choke on its own exhaust doesn't feel like the answer to our problems environmentally.
Having a $75,000 truck that's shut down because of a $40 sensor that doesn't know what it's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then being told by every mechanic that it'll just do it again. Like, we can fix this, but you've got 12 more sensors that are going to do the same thing.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay, well, that's an easy decision to make.
I'm sure all that stuff works great in the automotive engineers test lab and on their test cycles, but out here in the real world, especially in, on the plains where it's dusty and hot and nothing is smooth or flat.
Yeah.
Where's things out?
Exactly.
So how many critters can you process in a day?
So it just depends on the size of the critter. I've done like 5 larger hogs in one day, start to finish. I've done 3 head of cattle in a day. I prefer not to. I really prefer to keep it to like 2 at the max if they're small. If they're big, I just do 1 cow a day. And that also gives me leeway, in case something goes wrong in the process, like I have any kind of equipment issues. But, I have a lot of customers that have a variety of animals. I've shown up and done a cow, 2 pigs, and a goat in one day. And, we filled their freezer with multi-species animals. Now, in between there, Um, I really just want to stick to one farm per day, though. That's really the main thing. I don't want to be going from one farm spraying out all the way and then going back to, going somewhere else and then doing it again. So I keep it to one farm per day, even if it's like one lamb, which is very rare anyway. Um, but if I keep to one farm per day, that's my main thing. And we just go from, go by weights from there.
Is that
If I,
mostly like a contamination thing?
yeah, I want biosecurity really. And really just, it's a pain in the ass, you know. Well, after I spend an hour, sometimes longer cleaning the trailer, I'm ready to go home now. So that's what I'm gonna do. And we're just gonna go to the next place. And the idea of doing two farms per day sucks because if someone thinks that their animal might weigh 400 pounds and then I get there and it's 800, that happens a lot. So scheduling, I can't really base it on what people think their animal weighs because they're very regularly wrong,
Nobody knows what
unfortunately.
their stuff weighs. I've seen a lot of guys say, "Oh, my cows are 1,200 pounds." Yeah, they might have been 1,200 pounds when they were 3 years old, but they haven't been on
Right.
the scale in 5 years. I bet she weighs a lot closer to 1,800.
Yeah. So I always feel bad. Like if I go to, because I did this in the beginning, if I go to one farm in the morning and then I get there and it's unexpectedly larger and taking me longer, then I'm just consistently, texting or calling my next appointment saying, I'm sorry, we're running late. I don't have a time frame for those people. And that I don't want to be that person in business. Like I said, I have almost 16 years in restaurants, 12 years in bartending. Customer service is pretty important to me. I don't like when people tell me, we don't know when we'll be by. That would irritate me, especially when I've got to prepare a live animal for you and have things ready. So if I keep it to one farm per day, I've only got one person to get to. And once I get there, if it takes longer, it takes longer. That's fine. But at least it's not holding up my next appointment.
I would just look at it like I'm trying to manage the disappointment that I'm going to create by only putting one person on the schedule.
Right. Yeah. And that's where it sucks for me being, when I get cancellations, because then I'm like, that was a whole day. I lose a whole day. So I will say cancellations hurt me a lot more than probably other shops get hurt with it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And it's kind of a common theme, especially with smaller operations that are or startups that
Mm,
if you get a string of cancellations, I mean, that could really be painful in the first couple of months, if especially
yeah.
if they come at once. Um, and from the sitting on the producer side, we make that commitment to get the animal to the processor or to book services like yours at least a couple months ahead of time. Okay, if it's emergencies or another thing, but if I've got to bring in 50 out of the pasture to cut 5 out to take to the processor, I'm going to do that 2 days before.
Right.
And then the day before, I'm going to make sure I've got them sorted, make sure they're calm, make sure they're captured, make sure they've got feed and water, and they're settled in where I'm going to be loading them from. Just so it's just that much. Just take the days to work them closer and closer and closer to reduce by probability of screw ups. Because I understand, like, if you're only going to do 2 cows in a day and I call you and I cancel because I didn't have my crap together, well, the next time I call you, are you going to be willing to answer the phone? I mean,
you know, I
that
I've definitely had this happen where people call me, they're like, we can't catch them, or, they're bred. And I'm like, you could have found that out, we could have handled this sooner. But for me, stuff happens. I'll always give somebody a second chance. A third chance, probably not. Probably not. Second chances, yes. I've actually gone back and forth on whether I'm going to take deposits on my appointments because of the cancellations. During COVID, it got real messy where people were making multiple appointments for the same animals. I mean, they were selling butcher dates like on Craigslist. It got so ugly up here. And if I ever caught someone doing that, I'll make this public announcement now. You're not going back on my list. But for the most part, I understand crap happens. Like I said, I just had goats born this week that weren't supposed to be produced ever. And um, I understand stuff happens, so always give people a second chance. Maybe not always a third chance, but um, most of my customers are good. The cancellations tend to be lately that they just can't afford to feed them. And that's heartbreaking. And I can't, I'm not going to send that person $100 cancellation fee for that. Like, we're all feeling the hurt, like you talked about in the beginning about rain. Like, we all know the cost of hay right now, the cost of feed right now, the cost of everything right now is insane. And so we're all just trying to make it. And so am I.
Okay. Do you want to, can we talk about your cost, like how much you charge? I mean, because,
Yeah.
and I get that it's going to be, well, maybe it's not, but in my mind, it probably is going to be a little bit more than taking it to a brick and mortar place because of the convenience that you're right there.
Gosh, I wish I could get my prices up like that. No, I'm actually pretty average. Unless you have like a full grind, I do charge an extra charge on grind. So where I'm at right now for 23 is 85 cents a pound hanging weight. So for the people listening, hang weight is not the same as live weight. Just to clarify, for pigs, that's about a 30% difference. For your cattle, 50% is a good guesstimate. So you're 85 cents a hang weight, 50 cents a pound on grind. And, I thought about just raising my full, by the pound rates, but it's the emergencies. That's why we have that second grind fee, because those emergencies tend to be a full grind, which actually takes me a lot longer to do. You would think opposite, but I'm working with a 1 3/4 horsepower engine on my grinder. So I have a 50 cents a pound grind fee. And then for sausage, 75 cents a pound, chorizo's $1.50 a pound, $2 a mile from my location in Hera. And I'm happy to give people quotes on that when they call. And then of course, for disposal, if I dispose of it, I'm going to charge you $100 for cattle, $60 for smaller ruminants, $100 kill on cattle, $50 kill on small ruminants. So it's actually pretty fair. My pork game is really cheap in comparison to everybody else, and I don't charge minimums. So for the smaller breed communities, the Dexters, the Highlands, mini Herefords, Cooney pigs, IPP pigs, all that stuff, I don't charge minimums. They're saving a lot of money already just by having me butcher.
Sound like it.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like it.
The pork side, people are always really happy with the prices on pork, but I'm also, like, again, like we talked about before, I'm not doing all those added value products. So a lot of your money at a butcher shop when you butcher a pig comes into that added value products.
Right. They're not making a whole lot giving you back your pork chops. They're making their money giving you the sausage and giving you the bacon that everybody likes.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right, just a couple more questions here. So, if you were going to build another one, how much how much would you change?
Oh man.
Or I guess you can also approach it this way. If somebody walked into your driveway right now with a checkbook and said, "I want to buy that," you can go build another one, but I want to buy that one today. What would that look like?
What would I sell it for?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't let anybody have it for less than 350,000 probably at this point.
Okay.
And that's a big number. That's overshooting it because it took me a year and 7 months to build.
I mean, well, and that's fair. I mean, it's
Yeah.
way more than just the value of the trailer and the machinery that's in it.
Yeah, if I were to build another one, there's not a lot I would change. There would be some things I would probably ask for differently from the trailer company. Like the floors are ribbed. They got the aluminum ribs. I hate that. It's a pain in the butt for cleaning purposes. But it also, and I'd rather put mats down or something like that. I would probably ask for some better quality caulking around the whole the whole trailer. I got the trailer from Sundowner. I probably wouldn't buy from them again. I just said that publicly. So Sundowner, sorry. You've kind of screwed up on this, but
Was it an off the
What
shelf
I've done
trailer or
in the
was it a custom build?
so during COVID, if you remember, there was a truck shortage and a trailer shortage. So I was just lucky to get a trailer. The fact, I wanted aluminum, I wanted a gooseneck, and I wanted it enclosed, and I got those three things. I wanted a spot to put the generator, and I wanted more like electrical outlets in it, things like that. Just little nitpicky things that I didn't get because of the situation. I was forced to get one that was already in production, and most of those options were out at that point. But I would probably go. What I really like to change is the truck, get a shorter truck, but I also have a bee business. And so I need a long bed for multiple purposes, but mainly for ladders and for my bee stuff. So a shorter truck to shorten it up about 4 foot would be nice for getting in and out of places just because turning radius sucks. But
Drive a mega cab. I, I
it's
feel
huge.
that.
Yeah, like I said, it's 52 foot. So it sucks sometimes. It really does. But for the most part, I've never had a job that I've driven up to and been like, we can't make this work. It's always been, we'll make this work one way or another. But like I said, there's not a ton I would like to change besides having about 6 figures more to put into, generators, vacuum sealers, grinders, and a bandsaw. Like those 4 items, if I were to upgrade them, would be almost 6 figures. So I would love that. That's still hopefully going to happen in the future. And I kind of built it with that in mind. I was like, if I can just put all my money in the bones of it and then worry about some of these little smaller details later. And that's what I did. But yeah, there's not a lot other than that I would change. I love the crane system. I'd like it to be more automatic. I would probably just make everything electric and automatic, but I didn't because I assume that, more stuff that can break essentially.
Right. You wouldn't want it like taller, would you? Or do you think 7 feet's enough?
What I have works really, really well. Having it taller, like if we were to use like a box truck, something like that, you could actually hang halves in. That would be cool, but I'm going to break it down into quarters anyway, since I'm cutting it right there. And I think hanging quarters is just as good as hanging halves if you were to still take it somewhere and age it. So I'm fine with the height. I mean, I'm not that tall, so it actually works well for me because I'm only 5'6" or so. So much taller. I do carry a ladder with me though. Occasionally, occasionally I have to climb up there. But if it were taller, I think it would be hard for me to manage by myself, at least.
Okay, and that's fair. From talking to Mike, I think that was one of the problems that he was having, or one of the issues he was having was space under the rail because
Right.
they were wanting to walk a live animal right up, and then I think knock it right there next to the trailer, and then pull it in and do everything inside.
Right. That's essentially what I do. But I just, I skin and gut outside of the trailer. I like to keep the majority of the bacteria outside. In Texas, you have to skin and gut inside. I actually know someone that has a trailer like mine, and they have to do it that way. They had to build a partition. And I'm glad that our laws are different here in Oklahoma, where I'm able to skin and gut outside, and then I just quarter it off that back rail, slide it on down into quarters, and then I can pull quarters onto the table as I go. And that works really well for me. And even if I were to take it somewhere and age it as quarters, is not a big deal.
Perfect.
No big deal.
So since we're talking about doing it again and building another trailer, I know there's got to be somebody out there that's listening to this and they're already sketching out their own design, right? So
Yeah.
what advice would you have for somebody that's wanting to do this, that's wanting to do what you're doing?
Well, I actually just started getting a little following on TikTok, and this is the biggest question. Everybody is asking me like, well, we want to do this. How do we do this? And I hesitate to answer sometimes because most of these people have never butchered an animal. So my first piece of advice is to go butcher an animal, because if you've never done it, it's going to be shocking for you. You're probably first of all, you just need to see if you can hack it. Like the number of deer hunters that I've hired that haven't made it, well, I know how to butcher a deer. I'm sure it's the same as a cow. It's not. So first of all, learn to butcher. I would highly recommend spending at least a year shadowing another butcher at a shop. See how it's done that way. If you've got a mobile person nearby that you can work with, go shadow under them, of course, but it's unlikely you'll find one. There's so few of us that are doing the full process on site. I've only found two or three. Honestly, I've only seen two rigs, and I know of a couple people that just kind of show up with their knives, and work as labor, just hired hand at that point. But I would say go work with a butcher for a while. See if your body can handle it, because that's the other thing. Tendonitis is huge. In butchers,
it is physical work.
Carpal tunnel is huge. If you can't lift 60, 70, 100 pounds, I wouldn't recommend it. Bending, you're going to be bending over skinning when you're doing cattle. So the physical part of it, people don't realize. They think that what I do is I make it look easy, but I am exhausted. So first, see if you can handle it, see if you can. You realize, like what I do, I had to learn how to drive a gooseneck, which I've driven trailers forever, but not a gooseneck trailer. I mean, you got to be able to drive. You got to be able to park a trailer, back a trailer. You're going to get into some really squirrely situations. I mean, I'm clearing some gates by this much, and it sucks, but it's just part of it. You got to be able to shoot a gun. I had one the other day. I actually posted it on Facebook. I definitely don't think I'd get away with it on TikTok, where this bull had actually broken someone's bone in their back. Super aggressive bull. And I immediately was like, why didn't you just shoot it right then? I can't believe you waited for me to come. But they did, and I had to shoot it from the street. So we're talking 100 yards easily, if not further. So if you can't shoot a gun, that's your next issue. It's not the same as shooting animals at a shop where they're being pushed through a squeeze chute. Their head is right there. It's very simple. Oftentimes I'm in the middle of a pasture. I get all the animals that are untrailerable, injured, some of these situations that you're going to have to shoot from a distance, or you're going to be chasing an animal around, and you definitely don't want to do that. So, gotta be able to shoot, gotta be able to drive a trailer. Working by yourself or working with someone else in a small space, keep that in mind. We're working with sawzalls, we're working with band saws, and working with knives. It's extremely dangerous, and large animals. The other day I had someone take a tractor and run it into the side of the trailer while I was in it. And if I'd have been running the bandsaw, it could have turned out really, really badly. So just keeping in mind these things, physically what you're capable of. And then from there, I would say, spend a day with me. I totally invite anybody who wants to do this to come spend a day with me. I know a gal in Texas doing it. Go spend a day with her, and get a broad picture of what a day of a mobile butcher looks like. Because a lot of times it's a 12-hour day very easily.
Awesome. I need to take a break for just a few minutes. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Whew, I got to stop drinking so much coffee before I sit down and do one of these. So are any other educational resources? And this is something I've talked to Mike about previously. So it seems like, when we had the round of all the small meat plants started to fall out of favor in the 80s, in the aftermath of the checkoff, and in the aftermath, all the big corporate consolidation going on that was happening in the late 70s, early 80s. And it seemed like all the older fellas that were cutting meat in the small town butcher shops, a lot of them just said, screw it, I quit. And closed the shutters on the thing, and there was nobody else to take up that craft, that trade. And for the last, 20, 30, 40 odd years, there just hasn't been any craft. The craft of butchery is just not practiced. No. Yeah, it's still alive in some of the small packing plants, the 20, the 40 head a day plants. It's still there. But what I'm saying is we de-skilled the meat industry massively. We took the butchers out of the grocery store that knew how to break down, those halves and quarters. We took those out of the grocery store, out from behind the meat case, and we sent all those jobs to the packing plant. And it's not necessarily skilled labor at a packing plant. Yeah, they got to know how to handle a knife, but they're only having to know how to make, just a couple of cuts. You've got to know everything from soup to nuts on 4 or 5 different kinds of animals, and how to break it down, and how to maximize that. So, you brought up some great points, like, follow another butcher around, and then you said, but there's only like 3 of me. And
Yeah.
I have heard of another one out in Colorado that's doing something very, very similar to what you're doing. I haven't been able to make contact with him yet. I don't think there's anybody in Kansas doing what you're doing. So other than, I mean, I guess really the only way to learn how to cut meat is to go watch somebody do it and have them tell you how they're doing it. But I think maybe there's a problem that those folks just aren't available. And
Yep.
and I think it's definitely a need in the industry to have more butchers being trained.
Agree. Yeah, I talk about this a lot actually, because there's some gatekeeping in the industry a little bit. When I first wanted to learn how to do beef, because I'd been doing my own pigs, which really was a result of being disappointed with my local processor when I sent some pigs up. And I said, there's no way I couldn't do better than that. So I just started doing my own pigs. But I hadn't really had a lot of beef experience. I actually had contacted every butcher shop within like a 60-mile radius of me and offered to work for free to learn how to cut beef. Only one person took me up on it. And after just less than maybe a month, she said that I learned too much too quick and I had to go. So, you've got a couple of things going on. There's not a lot of butchers that are surviving, honestly. It's just really hard work. And then they don't have anybody that they can give it to. Their children aren't wanting to pick up the trade. And I think this is a problem in just farming in general and ranching in general, and I've spent some time in commercial beekeeping. So the average farmer being 60, and how many of those farmers have someone that's going to take their place? Not very many, because, especially my generation was taught to go to college and to get a job, and farming and ranching was not part of that. So what you're seeing is just a lack of a next generation. And then also, like you said about craft butchery, even our local butcher shops, they're not selling a lot of those, what I consider craft cuts. What I've done is just learn from as many people as possible. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Either, pick up books, pick up audiobooks, pick up podcasts, pick up following different people on YouTube everywhere you can. Sorry, I am just losing my voice. It's one of those things that I think you if you can't do that, then it's probably not a good idea for you to get into it, because there are some colleges, some classes that are starting to pop up. They're mostly at Votex. I actually helped here locally. They built a semi that's going to be like a mobile processing unit for them to teach in here at one of our local tech schools. And that's going to be an awesome opportunity. I can't tell you what they're teaching those kids. I can't tell you if they're teaching them box cuts or if they're teaching them the craft side of it. But the craft side of it is not that difficult. Once you learn to break down one animal, breaking down bigger animals gets easier. So that's why I always say kind of start on the smaller side, get comfortable with that. And once you do that, you'll be fine once you get into the larger animals. Beef is where you really get into most of that craft stuff. Like we're talking about like Delmonico's and oyster steaks, and even locally, like most of my customers have never had a flat iron. Blows my mind. I'm going, this is the second most tender cut on the whole animal.
Flat iron is one of my favorite steaks.
It should be. It should be. It's a great steak. And there's a lot of these cuts that other shops, they're still having to cut this out. They're just throwing it into the grind bucket, or they're including it into something easier. It's called box cutting because they're literally just cutting straight lines, so on that shoulder, instead of peeling out that flat iron, they're just cutting that into straight chuck roasts or pot roast, whatever they're calling it in your area. So then that flat iron ends up being like this tiny little sliver that's on each one of your chuck roasts, when you could have had this beautiful steak out of it instead. And we could still pull some chuck roasts, promise. They're just probably going to be boneless. But yeah, it makes me sad to see that it's going away. That's why I really push the classes. I teach as many people as I can. There seems to be a lot of interest in online classes. I hate the idea of that, because I really love teaching hands-on, because that's how I learn. But there's all these people that want an online class, and I've been racking my brain for weeks now trying to come up with a way that we can offer that, or offer some version of a class. Maybe it's just not, I will do my best. I'm going to try to come up with something for people. If nothing else, for them to just be able to be prepared in the case of like an emergency. I tell people at all my classes, because a lot of people will still go through my class and they'll never butcher their own animal. But, I tell people it's not a matter of if you need a butcher, when you have an emergency. It's not a matter of if you're going to have an emergency, but you just when. If you've got cattle, you're going to have something happen at some point. And a lot of my customers I've told, when I can't get to them, I'm like, if you can get it bled and gutted, I can get to you, tomorrow, or I can get to you at this point. And so I think that's a life skill. I think it's a life skill that should be taught at school, but I digress. Since they're not teaching it, I'll teach it. The main important parts are shooting it properly, getting a good correct shot, bleeding it and gutting it. And after that, you can screw up whatever you want. So, if you raise your own animals, that's the best way. Practice on your own if you've got no other resource.
Okay. So how can people get a hold of you to book your services?
So multiple ways. I'm on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those ways. My cell, people text me, call me. If you can't get a hold of me on the phone, just text me. I'm regularly in no cell zones. So 405-887-3066 is my cell. Tiffany at backyardbutchery.com. It's my email. And then backyardbutchery.com is my website. So there's a place to contact me there. All that info is there as well. All that info is on all my social medias. Just across the board at Backyard Butchery is my company. And my name's Tiffany. So I'm fairly easy to get a hold of.
Awesome. I won't put your phone number in the show notes. If anybody wants it, they're going to have to go back and rewind it a couple times. But
Back to me.
I'll make sure I have everything else in there. Anything I forgot you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, it has been an awesome conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me today. And for everybody out there in podcast land, I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Brian. Have a good day.